I know you're busy, but
Less than $1 an hour.
everywhere for everyone.
Whatever it is, stop complaining to me.
We're not doing this anymore.
I'm not telling you to take a pay cut.
More than that.
And I'm failing those people.
That's not how we run things.
Then there's not any good leadership.
Not what somebody else told me to do or asked me to do.
This is how I live my life.
Our approaches are just so different.
I really, really think that I just help make this simpler for people, but whatever.
Hi, y'all. You've tuned in to Stay Sharp, conversations and stories about personal and professional development, hosted by myself, Jordan Ray, and my other half, Rashad Tyler. How are you doing today?
I'm good. You look so nice to me. You always do, but I'm just glad to be back doing this particular thing with you, the person I like spending most of my time with. So I'm excited for the content that we are intending to bring to people. We've upgraded our tech and the way that we deliver this thing. So we want to make sure that people have as much value when they go away from it as they did the first time around, if not a lot better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've put a lot into this, and we definitely want to make sure that you all are getting a lot out of it. We have a conversation for you today about being busy versus being productive. This is something that all of us are trying to figure out for the long haul, right? Our schedules are always changing. Seasons are always different. And if you are someone who always hears, maybe you say to other people, I know you're busy, but first of all, there's a world where we're all busy, and there's a world where we all ain't doing shit.
Correct.
Because I know that I'm busy. I guess I can appear busy. I hear that a lot of my friends are always like, I know you're busy. And I'm like, don't worry about what I'm doing. What you doing? How you doing?
Right.
And I know that, Rashad, you get that a lot too. You're a pretty busy man. So how is your relationship between being busy and being productive?
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody who's going to accomplish anything, you got to be putting in the time. I mean, things don't magically happen. And it's weird to me, and assuming that people want to have some money or have some resources. It ain't magic.
Yeah.
People don't get wealthy by not working hard. The reality is every person who's got it or who makes it for their family, they had to do and be an extraordinary value add to the world, if not to their industries, right? And even past that, though, to kind of go to the question that you posed, I think that it's really easy for all of us to get a busy calendar, just adding stuff in there that we actually can easily execute. And I think there's a physiological reason for that. There's at least for me, I always feel good when I get something done. That's the dopamine hit that comes with anytime you set a goal for yourself and you meet it or you exceed it. And I've even chosen some things professionally to involve myself in that I probably shouldn't have. I think I've shared with you, I wouldn't quite say regret, but when I coached high school girls basketball, I was really always excited and I felt good about doing the work. It was really busy stuff, but it was great for everybody else and it was terrible for me. And just for anybody who doesn't have any context on me as a basketball coach, especially a girls basketball coach, we were really, really good. We were one of the top programs in the country, consistently ranked in the top 25. We won 5 state championships of the 7 years that I coached. We were great, but I gave too much time. In fact, I did a calculation on it because I got paid $2,000 per season. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the time I put in, I probably, of the 52 working weeks per year, I was still in the gym an average of 4 days a week. You multiply that times 2 to 4 hours. If you calculate my travel time and all the rest of that, I was probably making less than $1 an hour.
Yeah.
Right. And in hindsight, because I can do that math and I can look at it with that type of transparency and that type of realistic, what I did with my time, what I owe my family for how I spent my time because I didn't prepare or store or increase the room for us to be taken care of, it was a really, really poor set of choices. And it's not lost on me the relationships that I gained and the ability to now lean on my experience as a coach in order to move other people along. But I could have taken that same amount of time, that same commitment, that same effort, and put it into a place where I could have also advanced my career and also put more bank together for my family. So I know that it was a bad deal for me. And the people who are my friends and my family who are hearing this part of the narrative for the first time, like, I'm not tripping. I think it's a gift that, you know, I wish that I had and I actually did get from a lot of people in my community. So it's not lost on me the value of people being generous with their time. I'm just saying in a professional sense that I could have done a much better job of killing or knocking out two birds with one stone. Right? Is that a little bit? Yeah.
It's definitely tricky. And as I mentioned earlier, we're all navigating through this at any given time. How should we spend our time? When are we self-sabotaging our time? And what is even time management? It looks so different for all of us. And I want to make sure that we're not sharing with any of you all that you should choose to do things like we do things. That's not where this conversation is going to go. But it's more you having the grace on yourself to find how you want to spend your time and really do that proudly. But it does take a lot of work. You know, a couple years ago, I noticed that I was emotional hustling. And this is a term that Rashad has coined in the last, I don't know, few weeks or so.
That's what I was doing.
You start to emotionally hustle because you think you have to be everywhere for everyone and take on all the projects. And that was me a few years ago. We're starting Raire Label at this time. We've started Raire Label now 5 or 6 years ago, but we really started to pick up steam in about 2021. Mm-hmm. And I remember just taking on all the clients and committing because you're getting that dopamine hit.
Every time you close a deal.
Every time you close a deal. Every time you get on the phone with a client and they're like, yeah, I want to sign the contract. We're ready to roll. Cool. Boom. Another one signed up. Another one signed up. However, months go by and I start to see I actually don't literally physically have the time to do all of this work. And I don't have the team at the time. You know, it was just you and I. I don't have the team. I don't have the structure. I don't have the systems. I don't have the software. Y'all, if y'all are watching me anywhere else, y'all see me talk about ClickUp all the time. I wasn't even using ClickUp back then.
Correct.
So I need to figure this stuff out, have too much work on my hands. I'm overloaded. I'm overbooked. And it's a good problem to have because you have to get to that place, especially me as like I was starting and running my first business. I needed to get to the place where I was like, oh, I'm in the weeds. So you get in the weeds and then you start to be able to say no. You start to be able to take a pause, clean up your calendar a little bit and stop saying yes to everything and be very particular about what you spend your time on because you better understand how to value your time now. Going forward, you'll just find another productivity situation challenge but you don't have any more I'm just busy checking boxes. Less of that, but you have to get busy first to
figure out,
retract.
Yeah.
I had an aha moment that led me into using a digital calendar faithfully. Like I said, I was taking on too much work and didn't have the hours in the day or the hours in a week, maybe even in a month to finish everything. So I had to work on the weekends and I was getting frustrated because I felt like I had no me time. I felt like I wasn't working on Raire Label, our agency. I was just working in the business every day. And I was like frustrated on why do I have to like send the contracts and send all the invoices? And like, it was just a lot. And that was my big aha moment was I needed to be able to get to a place where I could carve out space to work on the business. And that's a conversation. Again, you got to get to a certain point in your business. Then you start to be able to be on your business and on top of different things. So I definitely wanted to mention that. And I'm thankful that I stuck with it long enough to be able to see that through. And now I have much more time where I'm able to take whole days to just work on our business. And that's something that I have to remind myself, like, this is why I started. Right. I started to be able to work on the business and not necessarily like, all of, the clients out there, like not necessarily just work for everybody else all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not why you start a business. But I do have to work for everybody else, including my team, every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the math has to math. And in the decision making for how you time distribute and what your real responsibilities are based on your role, like you can't be derailed by your body. Your body will ultimately betray the out of you.
So look, tell me a little bit about a situation that you had to step away from recently that we're both very aware of. And tell me how stepping away from it, you've reclaimed a lot of time back.
Yeah.
And just how difficult, though, that decision was to make, because at the end of the day, it was just more so keeping you busy than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be careful how I even step into that part of it, because I want to also share some of the earnings, what the numbers look like. Because I think where we might think of it as time not well spent, it just needs context. So I started a journey with two brothers that, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those guys, right? They are people who I love and admire deeply, which was the most deeply entrenched part of the hook for working together, right? For me, I'd come up on the music side prior to 2012 with close proximity to like Ross and Khaled and, these Rockefeller narratives and how team and family and, how you take care of the crew. And I really wanted to not only live by and push that ethos, but like teach it and make sure that I was a part of something like that. So underneath all of my behavior was that kind of thinking. And it's not to say that the brothers didn't agree with it, but much like the downfall of Rockefeller, like there was just ego and other things that were blocking a shift in leadership or growth overall in philosophy and approach. And I knew that we, the collective, had a chance to really go to new heights if we committed ourselves to it. So it took me about 5 years to leave that business. And mind you, like that business was worth between 60 and 100 grand a year to me, depending on the year. Right. So it's not bad money. It's not good money. It's just what it is. And I think the money, as we all calculate that part of it, is what sometimes will keep us from making the leap to something that is more interesting and possibly more financially beneficial. So I was challenging them, going like, we're doing the same thing. This business has plateaued. And what we all should recognize, if not accept, is if a business is plateaued, then it's about to decline, right? If your business isn't continually growing year over year, you got to figure out what the hell is going on with it, because it is certainly on this, whether you recognize it or not, it's about to die, right? So recognizing that and even sharing that sentiment, the guys just could not get on board with either my leadership or my thought process or a vision that either I failed to articulate or one that they didn't agree with. I couldn't say, but all I know was I was consistently frustrated and complaining to you about how much they didn't get it, right? Mm-hmm. And we could do this and we could do that. And you're like, well, shut up complaining about it to me, right? Either you're going to continue to go into this environment where the ceiling is set, or you're going to lovingly leave that scenario, right? Mm-hmm. And decide to be a man about what you're going to be, or, or not. But whatever it is, stop complaining to me, which was, of course, valuable advice. But more importantly, it pushed me off the porch to do what I needed to do. And I saw amazing increases, not only in my lifestyle and my earning, but in my peace and my patience, because I was continuing to grow the conversations around me, and I wasn't trying to force people into conversations that they had no interest in. And that can drive you crazy in and of itself when you're trying to drive a growth conversation to somebody who has zero desire to be in that conversation with you. So, yeah, Yeah, it's still like I miss the brothers so much, but I know that we can't be in business together, no matter how much I want that.
Yeah, and no matter how long you all had done business together, and that a lot of the reason why you've become who you are is due to the work that you all did together.
Correct. No doubt about it.
It's really tough. It's like breaking up with anything, and breakups don't always have to be relational or romantic, right? It's breaking up with projects, whether or not, it could be a bittersweet situation too. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be like, I've outgrown this. It might just be like, yeah, it's really time to move on, or the contract's up, I got to phase out. And it's just bittersweet.
Because it can sound judgmental, right? It's like, I think we had another client that we decided to behave or participate differently in that partnership because we know that they are not as serious as we are about our work, right? And those gentlemen had other interests.
And that's okay.
And as
soon as you can realize there's just not an alignment.
That's what it is.
Then you got to make your decisions. And I think that I'm very pro, well, what do you want? And I'm almost like always asking myself that, what do you want? What's in it for you? We're all getting into certain situations because of our own MOs. Yep. And motivations or motives there shouldn't be a negative connotation on that. We all need to get out something. Yep. And we want to I'm coming to the table with some stuff, of course, but I want to make sure that what I want, I'm clear on that. And you mentioned, we've broken up or parted ways, let go of certain things that at the time, it was really difficult to imagine, okay, I'm going to break up with this client, or I'm going to turn down this opportunity, because the first thing you think about is the money. You think about the 60, 100K, or you think about, this retainer client, they never laid on their invoices, but I'm about to tell them that we're not doing this anymore. And how does that conversation go? And every time after we get past the breakup and that difficult conversation, it's easier. Everybody feels like, okay, well now the elephant is out the bag or whatever. Yeah. What am I trying to say? One time this was a couple of years ago now, we were working with a major local organization that does every weekend this huge HBCU classic. And I'm just going to say it because we had a great time working with them. There was something that came into play where I did not psychologically feel safe. Me being the project manager and who I had to direct report to, there was just some stuff that I was like, I don't think I can physically do this for another year. Mentally, emotionally, have this relationship with this client, not the client itself, not the project itself. It was really deep. So I had to ask myself, am I going to be, what's the word that I'm looking for? Am I going to be putting our agency in a bad position if I decide to walk away from this? Because it's mostly my decision. Because I'm the person
because you're going to be in contact with
I'm the leader of that particular project. And I'm like, it's hurting me. I can't stand to get requests and emails. And once you start to feel a certain way and about comms coming in, that's when I need to do something about this. So I'm not going to keep complaining to Rashad about it or my other, the other people around me. I'm going to do something about it. And I decided to walk away from that project, have that conversation. And you realize afterwards, you should have done it all along, or you realize that once I've thought this once this thought has been really clear to me for the first time, I probably should have made this move.
Yeah. I think you hit on something earlier that I really want to emphasize, which is sometimes the security of the contract, the security of the money is giving you an out to stay in a bad scenario, right? And it's hard, but that's also why you look at some of the professional athletes that we admire, and sometimes they will take less money to go to a winning situation. If that analogy works for you, that's precisely what it is, because they're going to a place where they can win and they value the win more than they do the money. Now, I'm not telling you to take a pay cut, right? I'm telling you that there is increase in going to the win. You just have to be able to lean into that prospect and make sure that you don't take a step backwards or remain idle because you were too afraid to figure out how to live a life that felt good to you and do work that was meaningful. And I'll say one other thing, because I was sharing this with Mitch. He was like, oh, I love that. Because I was explaining to him about like certain clients or certain projects that we worked on. And I'm like, yo, I can't even put that in our portfolio. And there are people that can afford our services that can't do anything with them. And we've decided that we have to choose only to work with the projects that have the highest probability of going to the end zone or going to the Super Bowl, right? Because otherwise we're going to put in 60, 80 hours of work that will never mean anything.
More than that.
And if it doesn't mean anything, then we can't go on and do better work because nobody's going to have any proof of ability because everything we did lived under a rock. And final expansion. We have given people assets that they would fail to understand, or they would post them wrong, or like they wouldn't have a sales scenario in place because they didn't. And these are not things that are uncommon, right? We all have to learn how to run high level businesses. But what I am leveling with is that I have a responsibility to mandate that our partners and the people that we work with play at a certain level, because if I do the contract, I'm responsible for making a decision for our team, and I'm failing those people. So it's not a mark or an indictment against you. You're doing what you do. You're performing at your highest potential, I assume, right? So it's not ever about like judging somebody for where they are, because I've already admitted that I've made tons of mistakes along my business career that is pushed me to this spot where I'm just able to now share lessons that have come at a really, really steep cost to me personally and to my family overall.
For sure. Being successful inevitably is going to make you more busy and give you more opportunities. And with that comes a responsibility to then be very precise in your decision making and your discernment on what you take on and what you don't take on, and who you work with and who you don't work with. Because like we're in a very creative, front facing marketing. We make things look good. Yeah. Like y'all know, like Raire Label makes things look good. And if we're in situations where things aren't looking as good, that's not how we run things.
Then you can only come to the conclusion they don't make things look good.
And we like,
and you don't know why.
That's why I'm gonna just say this. I don't post a lot of other things to my own Instagram in particular, because there have been moments where I have gotten credit for things that I didn't do, or people attributed things that I posted to my page, because I think that my audience, my followers they're just kind of tuned to whatever she posts. Like those are things that her agency has done, or that she has worked on, or that she's directed or whatever. And so I have to just kind of be careful about that. And that's no shade again to anybody else. That doesn't mean I don't want to do anyone else. Yeah. Like that I don't love anything else, or I'm not trying to share nothing else. But the platform that I've built and the audience is expecting me to share, like, I think like my stuff. And if it's not something that I had hands in, I got to be careful about, sharing that stuff too much. That's going to sound really crazy, but I'll, elaborate on that elsewhere. So let me ask you this. How has saying no to things made you more productive? Because that's been difficult for you to say no and to not be the yes man.
Yeah. I mean, even in this conversation, there's so much narrative that I'm offering in terms of how to say no to different things. And I have to leverage my logical mind, because I'm a fairly emotional person. It may not come off in that way, but I'm highly sensitive. I think that's the reason that we can do the work that we do. So over the years, the biggest amount of work, the biggest personal challenge is how do I check my emotions? How do I be aware of that and leverage it when it's necessary? But also like put that thing on the sideline and try to make sure that I'm leveraging my logical mind to say this is or isn't a good thing. But to track back to the question, I thought a lot about like how to say no, but more recently I'm thinking about people who know how to quit. I'm not sure if that's the right reframing, but follow me for a second. There are people who know when it's time to leave, but if you are in that decision-making seat for yourself or for other people, and everybody knows that it's inevitable that's going to fail, and you're just realizing it all at the same time, then there's not any good leadership, right? You don't know how to quit. Because the people who know how to quit can see that it's inevitably going to fail way before everybody else. Mm-hmm. So they go, you know what? Not for me. But for me, in order to see that, I have to use like spreadsheets and other things like that to give me like, okay, this is probably not going to go well. Here's the history of behavior. I have to do all of that. But I can't ignore that there are people who are just like, yo, it doesn't serve me anymore. They have other ways of like feeling their way through that I'm not necessarily able to do. So I respect both tracks as a way of figuring out how to say no or how to say I quit or leave a situation. But the first thing that I should have answered was when something comes my way and I need to make a yes, no decision on it, I try to make sure that it meets a couple of standards for either myself or the agency. Number one, I have a very, very specific number per hour that I need to earn, right? So if this thing does not track well with that or it's below it, I automatically say no. And the other thing is if it's something else that I've decided to do and it can't meet that, I'm making an investment with my time that in the long run needs to exceed my hourly income. Other than that, like it's all the same fight for every person. I think you got to figure out if it's something that feels emotional for you, emotionally satisfying, because because it meets your financial threshold, it still might not be a good move. Because this is something that you're good at, I think. Like you taught me a lot about how to like move away from certain things and like go towards a new set of possibilities. And I've been really resistant to that, right? Because I see my chief role as like, all right, I got to protect us. Like, I got to make sure that we got things rolling, so on and so forth. And, I've taken on the attitude that some of your suggestions might have been cavalier, right? But I think professionally, the people who hit it over the fence, they live closer to you. And I've learned more recently that there is so much more power in no.
Yeah. I think no is something that has to be earned. And to a certain degree, we've worked long enough to have the ability to say no.
Yeah.
And that wasn't always the case. When I first started doing things, this could be anything creative. This might have been even before the agency. I was a barber. I was a bartender. I coached women's basketball. You have to say yes. You have to say yes, and you have to show up, and you have to volunteer, and you have to work for free, and you have to do a lot of things that aren't going to be compensated. But when you start to cross this chasm and this is where that busy comes in. You're noticing I am way busy. I know the value of my time now. So I don't have to do all of these things. I don't have to bring all of this on because it will do nothing but stress you out. And there were times, Rashad, where I would see you and I knew you weren't sleeping. I knew, when we were on the road a lot, like eating out all the time, and you're not you, but when you're traveling like that for work, you have to be very careful and detailed about what your schedule is because you have to stay on point, but you're in hotels and you're on airplanes all the time and you're going and going and going and going. So I think I am good at saying no. I have no idea where I've gotten that. but I'm just not also going to do something that I don't feel like serves me because I'm not going to show up my best. So I'm going to try to be really careful about picking the things that I get into because I know that when I show up, I am there.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've recently, just most recently, because this is a journey, y'all, I go through these phases where I'm like, no. I'm saying no to everything because I'm actually challenging myself to find more eloquent ways to say no or find better solutions. Well, I can do it like this. And that's something that you taught me is don't say no, but say what can happen or give a solution without just telling somebody no. I'm really challenging myself right now by not taking meetings, not trying to take no meetings. Why is this on my calendar? Why, if I did not put this on my calendar, why is it on my calendar? Because so many projects and so many conversations will start to just galvanize and consume all of your time. And then I am left with no time to actually do the work.
Yeah.
And that no, like I am paid to get something done. I'm not paid to be on the call explaining and presenting things. I'm a great presenter, can put your deck together, show it to you on a computer screen. But when am I actually going to go do the work? I'm like, I need to be left alone because that's when my creative comes out, is when I can get those workflows and those sessions in. So to say no to things like even in-person meetings, you know, like having coffee is something that I'm like, do I really want to go have coffee? Do I really want to go, you know, out? And it's to the point now where I don't even really get asked to do anything because people just think I'm not going to come. And I'm like, yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to come. But when I'm there, I am fully there, not on my phone. I'm with you. Yeah. I am present.
Yeah.
But I'm saving, and I'm also an introvert, and that's probably, at any given time in my life, I would have not probably been deemed as an introvert, but I totally am. And being around people just drains me, and that's not a bad thing. But I want to be selective on when I'm putting myself forward, and the return on that to me is the value of my time. I want to be doing with my time what I chose to do, not what somebody else told me to do or asked me to do. I'm showing up because I want to.
Or what you've committed and said you were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm big on that.
Yeah.
Super big on that.
Super big on like, this is what I said I was going to do. I keep my word. I keep my promise. And it's a way to kind of keep you in check for what you said you were going to do. Because the worst thing that can happen in relationship with either of us is somebody decide that they are either not adhering to agreements, right? Or they just, are operating with no guideline. So, yeah, I thought that was an important thing to add.
We going to have stay sharp on stay sharp on stay sharp because these things can go on forever. But I really want to make sure that, we're talking about the times where we made mistakes and we got better through them, or we saw things that just weren't working for us. So this is how we moved through those situations. With that being said, we're talking about, showing up through being busy and how to manage all this. How would you say that business owners, creative professionals can keep their cup full while the demand of the creative work that's asked from them?
So interesting too, because this is one of those things where I know I'm not totally qualified because I don't index high for my emotional read. I'm very much fixed to this long-term outcome, and you're not going to find me super unhappy or treating other people poorly.
Are you saying you don't fill your own cup?
No, I'm only interested in having my cup in an overflow. I'm only interested in that. So the way that I spend my time, and I'm so anxious to get back to you on this, but the only way that I spend my time is I'm either making something happen, I'm in the execution, I'm either preparing for being optimal so that I can execute at a high level, or I'm recovering from the harm that I've done to myself in the process. And that's it. And it doesn't matter if it's going to church with my mom. I'm going to make sure that I've done the meditation that I need to. And then when I walk into church, I'm aware, I'm locked, right? Because that's in my mind, That's execution. I'm executing going to church with my mom in a way that is enjoyable to her.
Yeah.
Right? So this is how I live my life overall. And for me, the enjoyment comes from knowing that I've done what I said I was going to do at the highest level that I possibly can. And in the meditation and the recovery part of it, because the meditation is a part of both recovery and preparation. That's where I kind of enjoy myself because I realize what I need, right? And I'm doing the deep dive to figure out like who I really, really am and what's really, really important to me so that I'm not disconnected from my own personal truth, which is I just want peace and I can be in those moments and just be at peace. And then when it's time to get up and go back into execution, I can be a warrior about that.
Absolutely.
So, but it's not how most people rock, right?
It's not.
So how do you?
That's why I was like,
how
are
do
you saying you don't fill
it?
your own cup? And
yeah,
because you're like, my cup is always full, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't understand the language because
I'm not giving you something I don't have.
Well, yeah, for sure. I think our approaches are just so different. So the way that you'll respond to something and just how you answered that question is not how I'm going to answer my own question right now.
Yeah.
You know, I think that I would share that I think business owners, especially creative freelancers, you know, our audience, I feel how you could keep your cup full through all the things we just talked about, the demand, the expectations, these masterpieces that you have to build is just tapping in with your mind and body. I know that it sounds so cliche, but I have to talk through it because I couldn't really grasp this for myself. So me listening to my own mind and body sounds or feels like or looks like any day when I wake up, because I do have a lot of autonomy over my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But any day when I wake up, I am really tapping in with how I feel. So that's why I spend the time in my morning routine that I'm not jumping on the computer first, or I'm not scheduling. If I do schedule a meeting, it's not really early in the morning. I do my absolute best to not be on the call or a call with anybody before 11 a.m. And it's like, dang, like, no, I'm not taking any calls before that if I can help it, because I am not at my best and I haven't had my time. I'm selfish with my time because I know the value that I'll bring when I am settled and when I feel like myself. So the morning routine is really big for me. I think also something I've recently gotten into since I've been back from sabbatical for a couple months is my workflow over 7 days as opposed to my workflow over 4 or 5 days. Because I used to try to be like, if I can get everything done by Thursday or Friday, like I can just kick back on the weekend. And I want to be able to kick back on a weekend when I can, but I think I'm also okay with working on the weekends. So I love to have the option to work on a Saturday or Sunday when everybody else, or I think that sometimes we're conditioned to think that we should not be doing anything on a Saturday or Sunday, or we should have weekends free of any responsibility. But I'm like, working on a Saturday morning is kind of slept on because everything is quiet around you. There's no need to check email on a Saturday morning unless you have like an event that day or whatever's going on. So those are ways that I'm really tapping into just filling my cup that maybe anyone can relate to, or maybe you're like, yeah, maybe I should discover what it's like to work on a Sunday. And I don't work every Sunday. I don't work every Saturday. I'm damn sure not working 7 days a week anymore. I'm past that. But I like to have the option and have the autonomy and like that's something that's important to me is I'm dictating, I'm choosing when I'm working on a weekend, when I'm not. But I'm trying not to put myself in positions to work on weekends because I didn't take care of what I wasn't productive.
Yeah. I think we're all playing different games, right? Depending on what our North Star is, like what we're really after. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, there was a question that you asked at the top of this conversation where it was about like, well, I don't even remember what the question was, but I know I thought about people who have marked themselves as high achievers who want to be like the game changers in their family, at least on the business financial pass down front, right? And those people are going to go like, shit, I'm trying to figure out how to get 365, right? Because it's important to them because they're trying to figure out how to have a little bit more edge on the other person who they're competing with in their respective marketplaces, in their respective businesses. And that's the game that I'm playing. Mm-hmm. So you're doing something totally different. But in your explanation, the top of your day sounds a lot like preparation to me. The same thing I was just describing, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that high achievers have much difference in what they do. And I would consider us both high achievers, which is not always outcome based. Like don't over assign your outcome to like your declaration of being a high achiever. A high achiever is a mindset. But back to the original point, like I think that those commonalities are always there. The language is often a little bit different, but prepare, execute, recover. How well you sleep, that's a big trend right now, right? The exercise piece, how you eat, that's all preparation, right? And then how hard you go and what direction you're going in when you execute is the other part. I really, really think that I just helped make this simpler for people, but whatever.
That was such a productive conversation.
Thank you very much. I think so too.
Great notes, fabulous notes. Yeah. We've helped each other so much in how we not only see the world, but how we're approaching work and life and all of this personal and professional development.
Yeah.
Thank you all. We appreciate you so much for tuning in to Stay Sharp. Check our show notes in the description for anything we might have mentioned or links or further elaboration. We'll have that all there. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.
Yeah. Thank y'all. Yeah. We will see you soon.
Later.